This video gives a quick overview of the TABARI Output Analytic Display. It's a project that I did for my user interface classes at Drexel. So what this interface is attempting to do is provide the means for end users to view TABARI events, but instead of looking at just individual events, to view them as an aggregate so that you can see trends and rising and falling actions, things like that in a graphical manner. So I'll go ahead and start this off by opening up a project. And what a project is just a group of events that have been coded by TABARI at some point in the past. This is a project that has about 3 years of Mideast events that were coded up. Actually, the whole project spans back 40 years, but I just took the last 3 years that were coded. So you can see here, the first of 5 different views that we have is called the actor view. And this just shows the actors that were in the actor dictionary that encoded it. And as you select an actor, you can see the noun phrases that matched up with this actor during the coding process. So a user could go around and look through here, but what I really want to focus on is the idea of aggregations. We'll start with, not with aggregations though, but with the idea of actor groups and event code groups. What this is simply a way to associate multiple actors or multiple event codes, depending on which section you're in, and give them a name. So as an example, suppose I have all these Arab actors out here, and I want to go ahead and associate all of them into one particular group. So I'll call this group very creatively Arabs. And now if I want to refer to this group of all these actors, I can refer to them as a single unit. You'll see that they show up here in my list at the bottom. I've got a couple other groups out here already. I could do the same thing with event codes if I wanted to. I could go ahead and select multiple event codes here. I'm just holding down the control key, and I can create a group from here. Some group of events. Usually you'd want to create something that's a little bit more meaningful. There are other ways that you can create actor groups and event code groups. You can explore those as you're using the interface. Now what this tool really has at the heart of it is the idea of an aggregation. And you could think of an aggregation as simply a way to filter a set of events into a smaller set of events that is usually done on some sort of temporal scale. So you'll have an aggregation that's done on a weekly basis, daily basis, monthly basis, something like that. Now to create an aggregation, what I do is I go into this little wizard. And here you can see on the left hand side the steps of the wizard. What I'm basically doing is setting up a filter. You could think of it like a sieve, so that anything that matches this filter is going to count towards the aggregation. So think of this as setting up restrictions. So I'm at the source right now. What I really want to do here is set up a restriction on the source of events. So if I pick my actor group and use the Arabs that I selected before, the only events that are going to count towards my aggregation are the ones that have Arabs as the source of the event. Now I could go through and I could create some sort of criteria to filter the events based on their action. I'm actually going to let anything, or everything in this case, pass the filter. Now I could do the same thing with targets, but again I'm going to go ahead and let anything pass this target. And there are 2 types of aggregations that are currently implemented here. One is a simple count of events. The hostility scale is a little bit different. Each of the events have associated with them, the type of events have associated with them a hostility scale value. It's really just a Goldstein value where negative events are hostile events and positive scale values indicate cooperative events. So you could go ahead and instead of adding up just a count of an event, you can see how hostile or how cooperative they are. But you can play around with that. I'm just going to select a simple count. And again, I give it a name. So Arab sourced events. And go ahead here, finish it off. It'll just remind me what I created. Close that out. Now we get to the interesting part, which is the graphical view. You'll see here down at the bottom I can select a number of aggregations that I actually want to show on this graph. The graph is going to show up here in the top. I just don't have one created yet. So I'm going to go ahead and select not the aggregation I just created, but this one called Everything Counts. What this is a aggregation filter that lets any event through. So what this is going to do is give me a count of events that happen in a particular time period. Now, as I said, these aggregations, they have to have, well, some sort of range, a start date and an end date. So I'll enter that over here. And as I also mentioned, you need to have a way to aggregate them, quarterly, monthly, whatever. I'll start with weekly, and this just has to do with how the graph is shown. I'm going to have little circles, I guess, showing on my graph. Well, that was particularly boring. Evidently something went wrong with my code. So we'll go back and we'll select this. You know what might have gone wrong is that there may have been no events happening at that range. I am too lazy to restart the video, so I'll just keep going and pretend like that didn't happen. So what you'll see here is I'm going from January 1st through 12/31/2008. I'm doing a daily aggregation, and you can see these are kind of spikes where the events were particularly high, the count of events on that particular day. When you're looking at just a regular view, you'll see a lot of spikes. I could go ahead and create a moving average underneath it, and that's this little yellow line here. If I want to get rid of those yellow circles, though, I can choose not to have any shapes. So you can see how the events go. It's starting to spike up here. Actually, if I looked a little bit further, I bet you I could see a higher spike around there. Yeah, so you can see where there was a spike of events here. I'm not sure if they're hostile or cooperative events, but I could go ahead and investigate further with a different aggregation if I wanted to. So there are ways that you can go ahead and manipulate this graph display. I could zoom in on it on just the domain axis, say, and probably scroll and pan along if I can remember how to do that. But the basic idea is that you create these aggregations and then you go here to the graph view, and this just provides you a way to consider different types of events by defining different aggregations. Consider looking at them at different time intervals. You can actually look at the scales, the squares of the values, the natural logs. There's a lot of different things that you can do here. But that's the basics of the system.